Lately I've been thinking a lot about arcade games. Not the arcade games you might be thinking of, like Contra and Pac-Man and, the iconics, like Galaga, stuff like that. But newer arcade games, because the arcade has fallen off, to put it lightly, pretty much post-2000s. So I thought it would be very interesting if we took a look at a few arcade games post-2000 that are quite rather interesting, and most of them are from a franchise that you would typically associate with PC gaming or with console gaming, but they're in the arcade, and I think they're interesting games, and I would just like to discuss them today with you. First game I'm going to be talking about today will be Counter-Strike Neo, and this is an arcade port of Counter-Strike 1.6 made for the Japanese arcade market, and I think it was like 2004 or something like that, early 2000s. And it's a pretty cool adaptation of Counter-Strike, in my opinion. I think it's got really cool level designs. I think the character models have pretty cool designs, and the guns are pretty typical guns, but it's Counter-Strike. What can you say? It's more about precise shooting and the gunplay and the tactics of it all than the graphics or whatever. Unfortunately, Counter-Strike is one of those games that are designed for a lot of people and net play and things like that, so I wasn't able to play online or play with anybody else besides a single bot. There might be a way to add more bots in the roster, but I couldn't figure it out because I can't read any Japanese, so I have no idea how to add more than one bot. But from what I could play, I thought it was pretty fun. I thought it was as enjoyable as Counter-Strike 1.6. I think it's a cool design that I think Counter-Strike should go for again. I think a futuristic kind of design. Looks really cool, and it goes against the typical thought of when you think of Counter-Strike. It's, just terrorist versus counter-terrorist, but Counter-Strike Neo, it's the same exact gameplay that you know from Counter-Strike 1.6, Source, Go, etc. Except it's got a cool cyber skin on it, and it's a cool play, and I'd recommend people to check it out. The best thing about that Counter-Strike Neo is, I thought was interesting, was that on the arcade cabinet, it didn't have a controller hooked up or anything like that. It just had a keyboard and mouse plugged into an arcade cabinet, so it was pretty much just a gaming PC hooked up in an arcade for you to play Counter-Strike with your Japanese friends. So I thought that was interesting that, an arcade game with a keyboard and mouse setup, that's kind of quirky. The next game I'm going to be talking about is Mario Kart Arcade GP DX. Now this is a racing game developed by Namco and Nintendo, and it features both Nintendo and Namco characters. And it's a racing game, Mario Kart, developed exclusively for arcades, and exclusively in Japan, as far as I'm aware. You can get a modded version in English, which is what you'll be seeing, but it's not completely translated, and it's a fan project. It's not an official project from Nintendo or anything. And I don't think there's an official release in North America, as far as I'm aware, which is a shame, honestly, because the gameplay is really tight. Being able to pick your character and your kart, that's really nice, and being able to select the weapons that you go into the rounds with, or the races with, which is actually a very interesting mechanic because it allows you to, have a little bit more strategy going into, your race. And there are 3 types of weapons that you have. You have attack weapons, defense weapons, and special weapons. And attack weapons generally are thrown forward, defense backward. Special weapons are usually just kind of quirky, but they don't really have a general consensus on how they work. But they're all just fun, unique weapons to use. I think there's something like 96. There's probably more. There's probably over 100 items. There's an absurd amount of items that all do a bunch of crazy different stuff. It's got gliding and underwater sections from Mario Kart 7. It's got Don-chan, which Mario Kart 8 doesn't have, so it's got that going for it. I don't know what Don-chan is, but it's cute. So I'd rate Mario Kart Arcade GP DX a Don-chan out of 10, and we'll get moving on to our next game. This next game we're going to be talking about is rather interesting, as it's from a franchise that you would typically associate with a home console, and that is Far Cry. And it's Far Cry Paradise Lost, I believe it's called. It has another part of the subtitle, I can't really remember, it's kind of a long name. But it's a pretty good light gun shooter, and yeah, it's themed around Far Cry, which means islands and pirate mercenary guys and boats and turrets. Yeah, that sounds like Far Cry. But it's a pretty decent game, and I imagine it'd be a lot better co-op. But if you want a really good time, which I haven't been able to test this out yet, but I'm sure it will work, hook up two mice, or just use 2 light guns if you have an actual arcade set up in your house, and then just play 2-player by yourself with the other mouse. And you can just totally wipe ass with the AI. Using a mouse, you might think it might be like a little too easy, and it kind of is really easy, but it's still not too easy. It's still got a good bit of challenge, and it's pretty generic as far as the environments, and the graphics are not very impressive today, but the ragdoll physics are fun, and pretty much the only thing you need to do is spam right click or the rocket launcher button, and you'll pretty much win everything. But one thing I would like to point out about the game is that, besides the repetitive nature of the environment, is the boss, at least on the first level. I didn't play the whole game. But the boss in the first level is called, I believe, Sarge. Or like the Sarge, something like that, something stupid. But in order to kill him, you have to shoot these explosive barrels when he runs next to them. And then he's like vulnerable to take damage. Right? And even on a perfect run, it seems like it's impossible to not do this without having to die and then respawn, aka put another coin in the machine, which kinda got on my nerves a little bit. It's not like the game was necessarily hard, but he will fire directly at you and you can't move. It's on rails, it's an on-rail shooter. So you can't deflect any of his damage, and even if you go in there with full health, you will die. You will die. It's almost impossible. I couldn't imagine beating the first level on a single run. I'm sure you probably could if you sank way too much time into it. But I just felt like that was a little scummy for an I get it's an arcade game and they need to make money. But it seems like you'd have to put a coin in to beat the boss, or you're just out of luck. No money, can't beat the boss. But other than that, I mean, it was a pretty fun game. You know, you got little turret sections on the beach, you got them on a boat, then you got them in a car. It's alright. I'm sure the other levels might be a little bit more, might mix things up a little bit more, but the original Far Cry on PC looked better. The last game I'm going to be talking about today is the Sonic and Sega All-Stars Racing, which is a pretty decent game. It's a racing game, of course, and it's a Mario Kart clone. But it's got pretty decent handling. It does feel a little bit floaty, but it is fun. You can play as funny Shenmue man, Ryo, who is just, if you haven't played Shenmue, play Shenmue. Maybe not for the story, but for the sailors. But yeah, it's a pretty fun racing game. Not even necessarily for the gameplay, which is still solid enough, like I said, but it's got a lot of cool Sega references. And that's pretty much it. I mean, I thought it was a fun game, and I know that there are some people who are probably like die-hard Sonic and Sega All-Stars Racing fans that have been throwing a fit about this game for 15 years or however long it's been. But really the best part about it is the Sega references. The racing is very secondary. Yeah, I can race as the Taxi Driver racer. I can race as Ryo from Shenmue. I can race as freaking, what's his name? That egg guy. But it's a pretty solid racing game, and I mean, to finish off this set of games, I think it's a pretty decent way to end it. It's a fun racing game. I'd recommend any Sega fans to check it out, but if you're not crazy on Sega, then I wouldn't check it out. I just wanted to thank you all for watching the video, and definitely like the video if you liked this, and I definitely enjoyed making it and really wanted to share these obscure or more obscure arcade games from the arcades of late. But yeah, that's about it. See ya.